Okay, so welcome back everybody to my P6, P5, not P6, okay, P5 science class. So that is what we're going to focus for today, and we will try to wrap up everything by today before we move on to the next topic. Okay, so basically we are comparing and explaining the reproductive processes in humans and flowering plants. And I need you to really recap with me, okay, because we are doing like a big revision for this topic. Right, so first things first, okay, we talked about sexual reproduction or reproduction as a whole. And just now I think somebody asked me what is the importance of reproduction, and this is actually the answer. You were right. Okay, sexual reproduction occurs in both flowering plants and humans, and it helps to ensure the continuity of their kind. Okay, I've already emphasized this many times, so please remember to use this correct phrase. Okay, continuity of their kind means of their species. Okay, so for humans, we want to ensure that the human population continues to exist. And then for plants, okay, you can see that the plants, they are very happy. They also want to continue their species. All right, so it depends on what the organism you're talking about. Is it the plants or the humans? This we have covered this like I don't know 1 month ago, few weeks back, okay, long time ago. So I need you to help me fill up the blanks. Okay, you by now you should know all the important terms, okay, for parts of the flowering plant. So who can tell me what is this part over here? These two parts over here. Okay, so all right, let me look at the answers. Enter filament. Okay. So let me check if that is correct. Okay, so this is the enter, the small part at the top, and the bottom part is the filament. Okay, so if you remember, okay, we talked about how this is belonging to the male parts of the flower. Okay, the male parts. And the most important thing about the enter is that it produces what? What does the enter do? Let's see who can tell me. Who will be the first person who can tell me? Yi said pollen grains. Okay, so basically it produces pollen grains. And pollen grains contain the male reproductive cells. All right, and then what's the point of having the filament? Why is the filament standing there? What is the use of the filament? To support the enter or to hold it upright. Okay, because usually for let's say if it's being pollinated by animals, you want the pollen grain on the enter to come in touch with the animal, right? So if it's like hidden inside the flower, then the pollen grains cannot be dispersed. Same thing goes for wind pollination. Okay, the filament has to be like hanging out so that when the wind blows across the enter, okay, the pollen grain can get dispersed. Right, very important. So filament is to support. Basically, it's a structural support. Okay, now let's move on to the female parts. Let's see who can tell me the female parts. Stigma, star, ovary, ovule. Wow, very fast. Okay, so female for both plants and animals or humans. Okay, females usually tend to be a bit more complicated, right? A bit more number of parts that is involved. Okay, so please remember to write out the correct spelling. Okay, so stigma is the top part. Okay, it produces a sticky fluid. What is the function of the stigma? Who can tell me? The function of stigma is to receive pollen grains. Okay, good. So this is where pollen grains are being deposited, right? So to receive pollen grains. Okay, then what about the style? Style sounds like very stylish. What is style for? Connects the stigma to the ovary. Yeah, so this one is like a bridge, right? It's a bridge between the stigma and the ovary. So more like, again, like a support structure. Okay, so connects stigma to ovary. And then after that, we have these two things. Both starts with O, but they have different functions. What does the ovary do? Ovary is eventually it will develop into the flesh of the fruits. Yes, so this one will actually eventually grow into the fruit, right? Okay, once fertilization has taken place, then how about the ovule? Ovule will become the seeds. Okay, so grow into the seeds. And of course, inside the ovule, you can find the female reproductive cell, which is also known as the egg cell. Yeah, the egg cell. Yes, I should write this down as well. Female part. Okay, so there are 4 female parts in total and 2 male parts in total that you need to know. How to remember this depends on how you want to remember. Okay, sometimes I tell my students, the funnier the word, the easier for you to remember. So if you look at all the front letters, right, like for male is like F, A, and then female is like what, S, so so you can remember something like so far so, or far so something that can make you remember the things easier, and then you can put it together. So I like the word so emergency, SOS, but then you still have to put one more O because of the ovule. Yeah, so you can remember so far so like the sofa, but then got extra so. Yeah, so depend on how you want to remember it. Okay, all right, so let's move on. And yes, we're going to recap. Remember, I showed this animation before, right? How fertilization takes place in the flowering plants. So this is the part where it has already undergone pollination. Okay, so remember, pollination has to take place first, either by animal or by the weed. And then after that, okay, depending on what type of flower this is, if this is by animal, then the bee or the butterfly will drop the pollen grain right on top of the stigma. Okay, so let's watch this together. If you forget, don't worry. That's why we are revising this. Okay, so remember, this is the pollen grain. Okay, pause here first. Let me show you all the parts. Okay, so the pollen grain will drop. Okay, will land onto the stigma. And then after that, the pollen grain, okay, will not just sit down there, or it will not be like the male sperm cell where it can swim. So what it does is it will grow a tube. Okay, it will grow a tube. And then the tube will grow all the way downwards until it reaches the ovary. So let's watch this. Okay, so you see the pollen tube containing the male reproductive cell. So you keep growing. This one occurs over like a period of time, right? Depending on the flower. Sometimes it can be a few days. Sometimes it can be even like a week, depending on which flower we're talking about. Then you can see that the tube here, okay, gets extended, reach all the way to the opening here, which is the ovule. And then finally you be like, okay, you will release the male reproductive cell, and the male reproductive cell will fuse with the female reproductive cell. Okay, so this part here, okay, the fusion. So when the male reproductive cell, oh, no space. Hold on. Let me erase this part first. Okay, reproductive cell fuses with female reproductive cell. Okay, so you must learn how to use all these proper terms, okay? Right, so this is the process of fertilization. Yeah. Okay, so when the petals will drop, so eventually the petals will drop once the fruit is developed. Yeah, because then you will have no use for the petals anymore. Okay, so this particular plant is, I suppose you only have this particular animation only show that the flower has female part. Some flowers have both male and female part, like the one that you see in the previous slide, but some flowers may only have the male part or the female part. So it really depends on the type of flower. In exams, of course, they will show you, whether it is like a, flower with both parts or just one part, like male or female. So now let's compare that to the reproductive parts in humans. So for humans, if you remember our dear friend GB, okay, our special guest the other day, came over to show us the reproductive parts for both the male and the female, right? And then what you need to be very familiar with is, of course, the 2D view of these parts. So in exams, they will show you like the front part, just like what you're looking at on my screen. Okay, then we talk about how yeah, these are the parts. Let me highlight the parts first. Okay, penis, testes, okay, womb, vagina, ovaries. And there's one more here. Okay, it's called what is missing here? There's one more part here. This is like a tube. What is the name of the tube? Fallopian tube. Okay, with a double L. Okay, in some books they will use the word oviduct. Okay, technically in PSLE, they will not ask you to name this part, but you are expected to know the function of the part. Basically, is where fertilization takes place. Yeah, okay, so let me see. Sorry, I think I saw some questions there. What if flower A pollinate flower B? Oh, it depends on, okay, so somebody asked a question about flower and pollination. Most of the time they will try to pollinate another flower. So the male reproductive cells or the pollen grains have to come from a flower that have the male parts, and then it will get transferred to a flower that has female parts. Yeah. Okay, so why is the sperm so small? It's very tiny. Okay, very, very tiny. In comparison to the size of the egg cell is actually quite big for a cell. It's one of the largest cell in a human body. And then the sperm cells are like super tiny. Yeah, so that's what happened. Okay, so then we talk about let's see. Oh yeah, then another important thing is the spelling, right? So if you are pointing to one part, okay, remember to use the singular form, okay, not the plural form, and vice versa, right? So for things like testes, there's two for the male, and then ovaries, there are also two. So you have to look at the diagram carefully. Are they pointing to one or two parts? Somebody said that in your school they say fertilization occurs in the vagina. I think it's a little bit hard for that to happen. Almost impossible, because you see, the egg, right? The egg is being released from the ovary. Let's say from here, right? The egg cannot come out through the vagina. Do you know why? Because if the egg come out here and then fertilization happen here, then where will the fertilized egg be attached to? It cannot be attached to the vagina, you see. The baby cannot form in the vagina. Yeah, so that's why the egg has to be up here, right? So that when it is fertilized, it will go to the womb. Yeah, so the only way that the baby can develop properly is in the womb. It cannot develop in the vagina. If you develop in the vagina, right, then anytime, it will just drop out. Yeah, because of the opening. Okay, if let's see, pollen grains from the anther falls on the ovary of the same flower, depending on the type of plant, some plants allows that to happen. So that will be what we call self-fertilization. Yes, so for humans, right, take note, the sperm will swim up, okay, here, okay, swim up the vagina, up the womb, and then it will reach the egg somewhere in the fallopian tube. Then that's where, they start to fuse, and then they'll be like, okay, fertilization. If the baby grows in the oviduct, okay, so for example, if let's say the fertilized egg did not gets attached to the womb, right? It gets attached somewhere, maybe in the oviduct. It can happen, actually, accidentally it can happen. And unfortunately, in those cases, right, the baby will not survive. And the mother's life is also in danger, because you cannot have like a fetus growing here. So if the doctor detects that, right, during the scanning and all that, then they will have to surgically remove the fetus. Yeah, and they call it the ectopic pregnancy, meaning the pregnancy did not occur in the womb, it occurs somewhere else. And that is very, very dangerous for even the mother. So they have to remove it. Unfortunately, they cannot allow the baby to continue growing. But that is not tested in your exam, okay? Extra knowledge. Extra knowledge. Okay, so let's see. We move on first. Okay, we move on first. because I need to show you the process of fertilization, just like what you saw in flowering plant. So this is the part where I was talking about. Okay, you can see the sperm swimming up. Right, so definitely fertilization cannot happen in the vagina. It has to swim up first. Okay, many sperm, millions of sperms. And then it will try to find, the egg. And along the way, many of them actually died, okay, when they get stuck. So then I think the other time somebody asked, how did they die if they get stuck? Because if they get stuck for a long time, the female's white blood cell will attack these sperm cells. Yeah. So you see, only one sperm is able to fuse with the egg, and then that is where fertilization happened. Okay, so let's see. Move on first. The question is, I suppose it's easy, okay? That's why it's only 5 bubbles. Which part of the flower functions like the vagina in human? So in a flowering plant, okay, which part of the flower acts like the vagina in a human? Okay, so questions before I launch. What is the ovum? Ovum is another word for egg cell. Yes. The answer should be number 3. Why is the answer number 3? Okay, if you remember, what is stigma used for? Is where the pollen grains get deposited, right? Is where the male reproductive cells get transferred to, correct? So the same goes for vagina, isn't it? Vagina is where the male cells get deposited, which is the sperm cells. Yeah, so that's why they have, like a similar function. Similar, but not exactly the same. Yeah, so it is the stigma. Okay, the stigma is the one that is like, the top part here. And then if you remember, the pollen grain will fall onto it. Okay, this is the pollen grain. Yeah, and the vagina, same goes for vagina, right? You remember the sperm will be deposited there. Yeah, so it's not ovum. Ovum is another name for egg cell. It's not ovum. It's not the anther, because anther itself produces the male reproductive cell, which is not what the vagina does. And it's also not the filament, because filament is also, again, part of the female, part of the male reproductive, okay, for plants. Yeah. Next question. 10 bubbles for this question, number 2. Okay, the diagrams below shows 2 reproductive systems. Which part, A, B, C, or D in diagram 1 has the same function as part X in diagram 2? Okay, so there are 2 reproductive parts here, which is your flowering plant and the female, okay, reproductive parts of, I guess, a female, right? So then you have A, B, C, D, and then X here. So clue will be, okay, try to identify what is X referring to. And then you look closely at A, B, C, D, and you tell me which one will seem to have like the same function. Okay, so let me see. Answer should be number 3. Okay, so number 3 is over here, which is C. Right, so C is referring to what is C referring to? Who can tell me? Those who get it correct, what is C referring to? Ovary. Yes. Okay, and this is X is the womb. Thank you. Okay, so take note. Okay, a lot of there can be some confusion. Some of you may think that, ovary in plants works the same way as ovary in humans. That is not true. Okay, in terms of function, they function differently. All right, so for the ovaries in humans, okay, the function will be more close to the ovules in plants, right? Ovule is the one that contains the egg cells. Okay, so don't get confused. Okay, the function of ovaries for the 2 different systems, they do not function the same way. Both have the same spelling though. I think, okay, maybe my handwriting is not very clear. This is R. Yeah. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, it's ovary, same spelling, but different function. Yeah. Okay, so let me move on to the next part. Okay, let me move on to the next part. Question 3. Right, which of the following statements are true in both human and plant sexual reproduction. This one you must read very, very carefully, okay? So A says that pollination occurs before fertilization. B states that germination has to take place to produce offspring. Offspring means the young, okay, or the baby, right? Then part C says one of the female reproductive parts produces the egg. And then part D says fertilization takes place between the male and female reproductive cells. So now the question is asking, okay, true in both human and plant. Okay, so it must be present in both human and plant. Yeah. So, any other questions before Mr. Panda says okay? Is it a hashtag yes for everyone? Hashtag yes, hashtag yes. You need a clue. Okay, offspring means the baby or the young. Okay, so I'll just write this down in case you don't know. Young. Okay, so after the egg has been fertilized, the remaining sperm will just hang around and then eventually they will die off and it will be removed by the female's body. Yeah. Let me look at results. The number of students getting correct has gone down again. Don't tell me it's because you misclick. What happened? Okay. So let's try to learn from each other. Those who got it correct. Okay, it's not even 85%, Dion. I think the correct percentage, right, is only like 55%. Almost half of the class got it wrong. No. Okay, so why is the answer number 4? Okay, so let me check. They're asking for whether the following statements are true in both human and plant sexual reproduction. Pollination occurs before fertilization. Does this happen in plants, humans, or both? Do humans have pollination? Can you imagine if humans have pollination? Does that mean that the sperm cells have to get blown by the wind? No, right? Okay, so it doesn't. This one is only for plants. That's why it's not true. It's only for plants. Okay, it doesn't require pollination. Okay, yes. And then for part B, germination has to take place to produce offspring. So do humans undergo germination? Do you have to put the fetus in the soil and give it warmth and water and oxygen? No. Okay, so this is also again only for plants. All right, so then part C, one of the female reproductive part produces the egg. This is true, right? So for humans, which part produces the egg? Quick test. Okay, which part of the human reproductive system produces the egg? It will be the ovary. Good. Then how about plant? Plant? Ovum? Nope. The anther produces the egg. No. Charlotte got it right. Charlotte say ovule. Okay, please write this down if you're not sure. Okay, the part that we're talking about here, ovary in human, ovule in plants. Okay, then part D, fertilization takes place between the male and the female reproductive cells. Yes, because both of the types of reproduction that we're talking about is considered sexual reproduction. Okay, for both the plant and the human. Sexual reproduction. So you need a male cell and the female cell. Okay. Yeah, so that's why the answer is C and D only. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, so we will try. All right. Please do not get this wrong. Okay, otherwise you will miss out your 15 points. The following statements describe the reproductive systems in both flowering plants and humans. And the question is asking you to identify the ones that are false, okay, the incorrect statement. Okay, so let's read this carefully together. Okay, so part A states, the male sex cells are produced in large numbers. So is this false, okay, for plants and humans? Fertilization occurs in the ovary of the female reproductive system. So is this true or false? Okay, for both for both plant and humans. Then one male sex cells will fuse with one female sex cell during fertilization. Or it takes 9 months for the fertilized egg to fully develop into an offspring. Okay, so give which clue do you need? Which part are you not sure of? So first of all, you must see that, okay, you must check with yourself, right? You must check that, is it the statement, is it correct for both flowering plants and humans? Okay, so for example, if you look at part A, is it true that male sex cells are produced in large numbers for both plants and human? Is it true? Then for part B, fertilization occurs in the ovary of the female reproductive system. So does this take place in the plants and in human? Okay, so just remember, where does fertilization takes place for plants and humans? Where? Okay, so if it's not correct, then you'll be like one of the answers, right? Because they're asking for a false statement. Then for part C, does it involve one male sex cell or reproductive cell fusing with one female sex cell? Or is it many male sex cells fused with one female sex cell? So think about it. And then finally, does it take 9 months for the fertilized egg to fully develop into an offspring or the young? Okay, so does it take 9 months for flowers and does it take 9 months for humans? Okay, let's see. The answer is number 4. Okay, the answer is number 4. Why? Because first of all, if you look at statement A, this is quite true, right? If you remember, for male in plants, they have a lot of pollen grains, right? It's not just one pollen grain, it's many, many, many pollen grains. And then for the humans, the sperm cells, they're like millions of sperm cells. So this is a true statement. We don't want a true statement, we want false, which is F, okay? So then for part B, this one is false. Okay, this is false because if you remember just now we talked about it, right? Fertilization for humans occurs in the fallopian tube, not in the ovary. Ovary is only for the plant. Yeah, for the plant. So this is false. And then for part C, one male sex cells will fuse. This is true. Okay, this is true, right? Because it's sexual reproduction. And the last one is false because 9 months is only for humans. Flowers don't need up to 9 months. Okay, they will be like several weeks. They already like, can produce a new plant already. Yeah, so for those who misread, you think you're asking for the correct statements, then I'm sorry, that is not number 2. Okay, it's not number 2 or number 3. Okay, so yeah, hope you learned from that. It's okay, it's okay. I think we have one more. One more question. Okay, so all right, so let's look at this. Okay, study the diagrams below. We have the human. Okay, this time it's showing the male. Okay, the male parts of the human reproductive system. And then on the right is this particular flower have both male and female parts. Okay, so recognize this, male and female parts. So which parts of the reproductive system perform similar function? Okay, similar function. So you have to compare here and here. All right. Yeah, so look at it carefully. What is the function of A? What is the function of B? And then try to compare it to the parts of the flower. So I give you one big clue. If you're looking at the picture on the left, right, this is clearly showing the male parts, right? So you must first identify where are the male parts. Okay, male parts. And then from there, you see, the function, is it similar? All right, so that's the clue. Identify the male parts first. Is it P? Is it Q? Is it R? Is it S? Anyone wants to help your friends? Who can tell me which are the male parts in the flower? That's the last clue. Okay, which are the male parts in the flower? It is, okay, a lot of you, very helpful. Very, very helpful. Okay, so you say that it's P and Q, right? Okay, so that's the only clue I can give you, okay? So now you can forget about R and S because R and S is the female part. Do you think that all of you did well for this question? Do you think you did well for this question? Yes. Same way is very confident of your friends. Yes. Okay, the percentage of people getting correct this time round is about 75%. Yes. Okay, I'm very happy because there is still a big improvement from less than 50%. Just now was less than 50%. Now it's 75%. Okay, so that's great. That's great. So we have to eliminate. So just now I said, okay, we eliminated R and S, right? Because that's the female part, nothing to do with the male part. So R and S, bye-bye. Okay. And then after that, we are left with 2 and 3. So the answer is 3 because B here, okay, this is the testis. And P here is the enter. Okay, so for those who get it correct, what does the testis and the enter do? What do they do? What do they do? Who can tell me? Who is the student who have been paying close attention to Miss Russ' lesson? And you can tell me. Make which type of cell? The male reproductive cell or the male sex cells? Yeah, so both of them produce male reproductive cell. Okay, that's why the answer is 3. Yeah, so for those who didn't get it correct, I mean, this is a learning point. I hope you understand. Understand. All right, so let's move on to the next part. Okay, what happens to the fertilized egg implant? So this is the events that take place after fertilization. So this one is, you can find this in your textbook, I believe, right? You have the flower petals, starting to wither. Okay, and then the ovary will swell to form a fruit, and then the ovule becomes a seed. Then the seed continues to develop, and the fruit grow bigger, and then bam, you have your mango, right? So this is only for one seed. There are some fruits with multiple seeds. So if the fruit has multiple seeds, what does that mean? Fruits have multiple seeds means the fruit at the start have multiple. Starting with O. Sophia said ovule. Yeah, I better write this properly. Ovules. Okay, so if the plant have a lot of ovules in the first place, then there is a chance that all of them get fertilized and they will form a lot of seeds. Yeah, okay, so many ovules, or if it's just the seed, just one seed is only one ovule at the start. Okay. Then in humans, we've seen this before in the previous lesson. So you remembered, okay, you have over here, okay, this is where fertilization takes place. Cell division takes place. Maybe I'll just write down the important parts here. So this is fertilization. Fertilization. This is cell division. Okay, and then number 3 is what? It's being attached to the, where is this ball of cells attached to? To the womb. So this part here is actually the womb. So attached to the womb. Okay, and then finally, if you look at number 4, you see that this is a fetus here. Okay, this is a fetus growing. Probably a few weeks old. Yeah, and then you have the umbilical cord. Okay, remember umbilical cord to exchange gases as well as pass in nutrients to the baby and remove the waste product from the baby. And after 9 months, this will be the birth. Okay, roughly around 9 months, can be a little bit earlier, can be a little bit later, but on average for humans, it's around 9 months. Yeah, okay, so next question. All right, for work example, we will try to do it together. And let me see. Okay, so for this question, right, it's the same parts, right? So if you can, everybody can answer this correctly for what example 1 and 2, then everybody will get some bubbles. Okay, so which part, P, Q, or R has similar function to X? Okay, so now you must help each other out. Okay, if you can get correct answers, then everyone will get bubbles. Let me look at the answer first. A lot of you say Q, 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 1 R, the rest Q, 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 Q. Okay, so let's review. Yes, it is Q. Okay, why? Why is Q similar to X? Okay, what is X pointing to? X is pointing to the ovule. Q is pointing to the ovary. So both of them produce. Quickly, Keisha said, both of them produce female cells or the egg cells. Yes, very good, very good. Okay, so there's still a second part to this question before you can get your points. This part here, state one difference between the sexual reproduction in systems A and B. So we're talking about human versus plants. So what is one thing that is different between humans and plants in terms of sexual reproduction? I give you a clue. There is a few processes that takes place in plants that does not take place in human. Okay, let's check. Involve the process of pollination. Yes. So we are only talking about the fertilization, the sexual reproduction in itself. Let's look at this one. Okay, the following diagram shows the developing young of a flowering plant and a human. Okay, label parts A and B. Okay, label parts A and B. Who can tell me what is A and what is B? Is very. I hope I pronounced your names correctly. I'm sorry if I mispronounce. You said that is the seed coat. Some of you say it's just the seed. The seed leaf. Sorry, seed leaf. Okay, and then B is the umbilical cord. Okay, let's check out. Let's check. Seed leaf. Okay, umbilical cord. Now, part B. This one is a little bit, you have to think carefully, okay? What is the similarity between seed leaf and umbilical cord? Does the seed leaf transport oxygen? Nicole said it produces food for the baby. Does the umbilical cord produce food? Ayansh said it gives food for the young. Do you agree it is food? Do people agree it's nutrients or food? Supplies nutrients? Supplies food? Yes? Transport water? Does the seed leaf transport water? Think about it. They're only asking, okay, the similarity between A and B. Alright, so most of you said food. Alright, so let's check. Both parts A and B provide nutrients or food for the developing young to grow. Yes, so you do not need to mention about water in this case because the seed leaf does not do that. Okay, they're trying to find out like the similarity between A and B. Yeah, so even though water is transported in B, but it is not transported in A, so it's not applicable for this particular question. Okay, and we have this last part, okay, for today's lesson. Just some characteristics. This is not somebody of you were asking some characteristics. So Dion said seed leaf can also be called embryo. No. Seed leaf is different from embryo. Yeah, it's different. Don't confuse the term. Yes, I like number one. Okay, so who can tell me what are some characteristics that you can pass down in flowering plants? Flowering plants can roll tongue. Shade of leaf. Okay, shade of leaf. Anything else? Color of petals. Yes. The color of the flowers, right? Color of flowers. There's actually a lot of things. Maybe two more. The height. Yes. Height of plants. In general. So is it like the short type or the tall type? Okay, it's either short versus tall, but not so specific as to measure in terms of cm. Okay, so it's just short versus tall. One last one. Types of dispersal. Okay, good. So mode of dispersal. Okay, so is it wind? Is it animal? Okay, is it explosive mechanism? Okay, so then how about humans? What are some of the traits? Just not roll tongue. That one is very simple example to remember. Type of earlobes. Okay, so earlobe types. What else? Dimple. A lot of times, if you can't remember, the easiest one to remember will be colors, right? So color of what? Color of eyes or hair or even the skin. Yeah. Okay, widow's peak eyelid. Wow, so many. Widow's peak. Okay, eyelid. Wow. Types of eyelid. Is it single eyelid? Okay, or double eyelids? Yeah, so it seems that a lot of you can remember better for humans, right? Because if you are in doubt, you just look at yourself and you're like, oh yeah, I can roll tongue. You know, my eye color is brown. Blood type, yes. Freckles, yes. Moles may not be. Okay, like moles can be quite I guess it's like quite randomized. Okay, so last page to show. This is a good summary table. If you want to copy this down or take a picture of it. Okay, it nicely summarizes what you find in flowering plants versus humans. So you notice that some of the boxes are fused together. Fused together means it is the same for male and for flowering plants and humans. Okay, if it's fused together, but if it's separated, means it is only for flowering plants or only for humans. Okay, so hopefully this summary table will help in your revision if you are being tested on this topic, okay, for your coming, test. Okay. Okay, bye-bye guys. I have to end the lesson now. Bye-bye.